Welcome to the most disgusting place in my entire house. This is our laundry room, and it's actually also attached to the downstairs bathroom. So I am dying to update this space because I'm down here a couple times a week, and when guests come over and use the downstairs bathroom, they see it. Now, in time, we may do a full remodel down here, so I don't want to spend a ton of money, but I just want to make some improvements so that it's presentable. Kicking off this project, I had to clear out the room and remove the trim. My number one priority for this space was to hide the ugly hot water tank. I wanted something that looked solid and permanent. However, we also need to be able to access the tank. I also did not want to spend a fortune on custom cabinets. I ended up using 2x4s to build two walls to encase it. The front panel will be removable so that we can get to the water tank anytime that we need to. However, it will look like a built-in. Now I had to do some heavy lifting here, pull out these washer and dryers that have been there for years. So there is a crazy amount of dirt and grime that needed to be cleaned up before I could start getting to work on anything. Now I did not put the board on the top until everything was in place. That's just because it's a very tight, snug fit and was not going to fit in there if I carried it in one piece. I was also able to use the level and the tape measure just to make sure that I was getting everything in the right spot. I had to custom build a spot for the dryer vent to go through the wall. Now you will notice later in the video that I had to move this vent. Since the ceiling was open, I was able to add support boards to hook the wall structure to. I did my best just to make sure everything was straight, although dealing with a house from the 70s has its own issues. I've learned to work in a good enough mindset. To patch the drywall, I used some scrap plywood and a drywall patch. I did come back with tape and mud to fix the gaps. It would have been best to also texture that area just so it would match. But since this is in the laundry room and most of it will be covered with a cabinet, I did not do it. With the washer and dryer pulled out, I got started on the flooring. Now I'm using the same flooring as I did on my last project, a waterproof luxury vinyl. It's great for beginners while also providing a good quality finish. I used a jigsaw to cut the flooring in areas to fit around the pipes. This project could easily be done in a week. However, with my kids' sports and all the other items on my list, it ended up taking a lot longer than that. That's why I put the flooring down under the washer and dryer and put them back as soon as possible. This allowed me to still do laundry, even with a project underway. Now the flooring was too thick to fit under the trim, so I used a multi-tool to cut it. Wedging that tile under the trim was a little tricky, but I did finally get it to fit. The funny part about all of it is that I later ended up having to take out that trim piece anyways to get the countertop to fit in. Funny how things work out that way sometimes. If only I'd known. Rather than using drywall, I used a $13 panel that is already finished and did not need to be painted. I also pre-cut the hole for the vent. You will notice here, as I talked about before, that there are 2 holes in the wall here. I did have to move it to a different spot. Luckily, you won't see that extra hole when the washer and dryer are back in, so I just left it as is. To address my storage problem, I purchased 2 12-inch cabinets. These are pre-assembled and already finished, saving me a lot of time. Now, I wanted to install these cabinets myself, as I just don't have help during the day. So what I ended up doing was screwing a piece of scrap wood into the wall, and that just holds the cabinet for me right in place where I want it, and then I can go and secure it into the studs in the wall. And fun fact, you can see I left room for molding at the top. I actually ended up moving these all the way up to the ceiling, giving me more room underneath. These cabinets have removable shelving, and this made it so easy. I can move those shelves to the height that I needed them to hold everything. I looked into a lot of options for the countertop. This was something that had me a little confused at trying to find the right thing. The problem that I have here is that with the venting and the plumbing behind the washer and dryer, they sit out rather far, and all of the countertops that I were finding weren't quite deep enough. The only ones I could find were expensive custom countertops. In the end, I went with an inexpensive laminate countertop. Now, it isn't deep enough, so I will build a removable shelf in the back. This will hide the faucets and provide a nice ledge, while also giving easy access to the outlet and the water access. First, I started with the support beams here, just out of 2x4s. As I said earlier, that door trim had to be removed to put the countertop in place. I enlisted help to cut down the countertop. We used tape over where we were cutting just to help prevent chipping. We hauled it in and it fit perfect. I painted all the walls to freshen up the space and to remove the outdated beige. I found that paint alone can transform a room completely. I added some additional support to the countertop, then moved on to the shelf in the back. The last part of the flooring went pretty darn quick. I did have to use the jigsaw to cut holes in the floor for the vent and also to go around a tube in the back. You'll notice plumbing for another sink in the corner. We don't need another sink, so for right now, I'll just cover these up with a fake plant. That way we can always go back and put one in if we find we need one. I prefer the more open, airy look, so I didn't want to build something over there or put in a big sink. Now my husband put in the last flooring, so I struggled a bit before finding out the secret. Don't worry, I'll walk you through this so it's easier for you. This flooring is super easy to put in, but it can be really confusing and difficult if you don't know how to install it. Here's my flooring secret. You want to start with a tile facing so that the bottom piece is sticking out. When you start your next row, Start with the side that once again leaves the bottom seal piece sticking out. That way, when you put in the next tile, you can line it up with both of these tiles, click it in place with the previous row, and push it down into place. Then use a scrap piece, and you can use your mallet to get it to click into place. Once the flooring was in, I installed trim, caulked, and painted. I also put in a threshold where the old floor meets up. I always have clothes that I can't put in the dryer and need to air dry. So I decided to put in a drying area. I put in a clothes rod, and my secret here is rather than buying a $30 or more rod to put in there, I went to the wood section and got a wood dowel instead. Now to dress up this space, I put on some cute, inexpensive poles on the cabinets. And now to add some fun items to make the place feel more homey. Let me show you how this cabinet works. It looks like a built-in, but I can easily remove the front panel to access the hot water tank. I used magnets on the panel and inside that framing area so it just clicks into place and holds it tightly against the wall. This space has been totally transformed. I am so happy with it. No more storing everything on the windowsill, as I now have nice cabinets to put everything in, a usable drying rack to hang clothes on, and a nice space to be in. Our laundry room went from being creepy and spider infested to one of my favorite places in our house. I have a lot more projects to tackle, so please subscribe and stay tuned for more.